Most people get midlife crises. I got a master class in Betrayal and a bill for new furniture. My name is Jared Sollace, and 3 months ago I thought I had everything figured out. Successful electrical contracting business, beautiful wife Ayla, 2 teenage daughters, and a house in Riverside Heights that screamed, "We made it." The kind of setup that makes your high school classmates scroll past your social media posts with quiet envy. Turns out I was the one who should have been envious of anyone living in blissful ignorance. The first crack in my perfect world appeared on a Tuesday morning in March. I was reviewing invoices for the Henderson commercial project when Ayla walked into my home office, phone pressed to her ear, laughing in that breathy way she reserved for people she wanted to impress. "Oh, Kendra, you're terrible," she whispered, glancing at me before stepping back into the hallway. "I can't talk about that right now." I caught fragments through the door, something about equipment and performance issues, and Derek's name mentioned twice. Derek Lane, my former friend and former employee who'd started his own competing firm 6 months earlier. The conversation ended with Ayla promising to call back from the car. When she returned, her smile was plastic. "Just girl talk, honey, nothing important." I nodded and went back to my invoices, but something felt off. Ayla had been having a lot of girl talk lately, always stepping out of rooms, always promising to call back later, always with that same group: Kendra, Cassie, and sometimes Derek's buddy Nolan. The second crack appeared the following week. I found a receipt in Ayla's purse while looking for aspirin. Tesla Uber, downtown, 2:30 a.m. on Thursday. Except Thursday was book club night, which supposedly ended at 9. "Tesla Uber again, Ayla?" I asked over breakfast. She barely looked up from her phone. Cassie's car wouldn't start. Had to get an expensive ride home. "At 2:30 in the morning? Ugh, we lost track of time. You know how it is when women get together." I knew how it was when Ayla lied. Her left eye twitched, just once, and she touched her wedding ring. Same tells she'd had for 15 years. My electrical business had taught me to trace problems to their source. Flickering lights usually meant loose connections. Random power outages pointed to overloaded circuits. And wives who suddenly needed expensive late-night rides were usually connected to something that would make the whole system fail. I started paying attention. Ayla's phone habits changed. She kept it face down during dinner. She took calls in the bathroom. She started charging it in the kitchen instead of our bedroom. When I asked about the switch, she claimed the bedroom outlet was acting up. I'm an electrician. I checked the outlet. It worked perfectly. The third crack became a chasm 2 weeks later. I came home early from the Morrison warehouse job to find Ayla on the phone in our bedroom, door closed. Her voice carried through the thin walls. "He has no idea," she was saying. "Honestly, Kendra, sometimes I wonder what I ever saw in him. Derek's right about the whole bedside manner thing. And don't get me started on his equipment situation." I stood in the hallway, invoice folder forgotten in my hand, listening to my wife of 16 years discuss my intimate shortcomings with her best friend. And apparently Derek had opinions about my bedside manner too. "The plan is still on track," Ayla continued. "Derek thinks we should wait until after the Henderson project closes. More money that way." "Plan? What plan?" I know. It feels cruel, but Derek says I deserve better. Someone who can actually excite me, you know?" The conversation shifted to logistics. Something about timing and paperwork and making sure everything looks right. I crept back to the front door, opened and closed it loudly, then called out my usual, "Honey, I'm home." When Ayla appeared, she was all smiles and small talk. Asked about my day, offered to make dinner, kissed my cheek like she hadn't just been planning my downfall with our mutual friends. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Ayla slept peacefully beside me. 15 years of marriage, 2 daughters, a business we'd built together from nothing. And she was planning something with Derek Lane, the same Derek who'd worked for me for 3 years before deciding he could do better on his own. The same Derek who'd been my best man at our wedding. I started documenting everything: times, dates, conversations, receipts. In my business, you learn to keep detailed records. Clients tried to change orders, suppliers claimed they'd delivered different materials, subcontractors swore they'd completed work they'd barely started. Paper trails saved you from liars. Apparently, I needed saving from my own wife. The final crack came on a rainy Thursday evening in April. I'd been working late on estimates when I heard the printer running downstairs. Ayla was at book club, or wherever she actually went on Thursdays. Curiosity got the better of me. I found 3 pages in the output tray, still warm from the printer. The header read, "Dissolution of Marriage, Initial Filing," and Ayla's name appeared as the petitioner. I scanned the pages with growing disbelief: irreconcilable differences, emotional cruelty, inappropriate anger management. A request for full custody of our daughters based on my unstable temperament and concerning behavior patterns. At the bottom, in Ayla's handwriting, was a note. Derek, does this cover everything we discussed? Call me after you review. A. I stood in my own kitchen, reading my wife's divorce plans, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not surprise, exactly. The signs had been building for weeks, but seeing it in black and white, seeing Derek's name attached to my family's destruction, brought everything into sharp focus. Ayla wasn't just leaving me, she was planning to destroy me. I photographed the pages with my phone, then carefully returned them to the printer tray. Upstairs, I found a burner phone hidden in Ayla's jewelry box, underneath the earrings I'd bought her for our anniversary. The recent call log showed dozens of conversations with a number I didn't recognize, but the contact name made everything clear. D. Personal. Derek's personal line, the one he used for jobs he didn't want, traced back to his business. I sat on our bed, holding the evidence of my wife's betrayal, and made a decision. If Ayla wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real electrical contractor could do when someone tried to short his circuit. Time to see how well their plan worked when I controlled the power supply. The call came at 10:47 a.m. on a Friday. I was reviewing the Henderson project timeline when my phone buzzed with Ayla's ringtone. Jared, you need to come home right now. Her voice carried that breathless panic she used when she wanted immediate attention. There's been an accident. What kind of accident? Are the girls okay? Just come home, please. I can't explain over the phone. The line went quiet. I grabbed my keys and drove the 12 minutes to Riverside Heights with my mind racing through possibilities. Car crash, house fire, medical emergency. None of the scenarios prepared me for what I found. 3 moving trucks sat in my driveway. I parked on the street and walked toward my front door, watching uniformed movers carry furniture from my house like ants stripping a carcass. My leather recliner, Ayla's antique dresser, the dining room table where we'd eaten family dinners for 8 years. Sir, are you the homeowner? A clipboard-carrying supervisor approached me. We're almost finished with the main level. Should have everything loaded within the hour. Finished with what? Who authorized this? He consulted his paperwork. Mrs. Sollace, paid in advance, moving everything to the Pinnacle downtown. Nice building. The Pinnacle, Derek's building, Derek's apartment. I found Ayla in the kitchen, directing 2 movers who were wrapping our coffee maker in bubble wrap. She wore her favorite sundress and had her hair styled like she was heading to lunch with friends. Not the look of someone dealing with an emergency. Ayla, what the hell is happening here? She turned with that same plastic smile I'd been seeing for weeks. Oh good, you're here. We need to talk. The movers continued their work around us, boxing up the remnants of our shared life with professional efficiency. I watched them tape up a box labeled Kitchen Fragile and felt something fundamental shift inside me. Talk about what, exactly? About us, about our future, about the fact that I've outgrown this. She gestured vaguely at the house, but her eyes suggested she meant me. I found someone who excites me again, Jared. Someone who makes me feel alive. Derek. Yes, Derek. No shame, no hesitation. He understands what I need. She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. Legal documents. The same papers I'd seen in the printer tray, now officially prepared and notarized. I've filed for dissolution of marriage. My attorney says the process should be straightforward if you don't contest the terms. I took the envelope, but didn't open it. And the girls? They're with Derek. They understand this is what's best for everyone. They understand? Emma's 15 and Sophie's 13. They understand that their mother is moving in with my former employee? Ayla's smile faltered slightly. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Derek's been wonderful with them. They like him. I'm sure they do. Derek's always been good with other people's families. The supervisor appeared in the kitchen doorway. Ma'am, we're ready for the bedroom furniture. Should we take everything? Everything except his clothes and personal items, Ayla said. Those can stay. I watched them carry out our bed. The same bed where Ayla had planned my destruction while I worked late. The same bed where she'd kissed me goodbye that morning, knowing she'd never sleep there again. This is why you needed me to come home? To watch you move out? I wanted to tell you in person. I thought you deserved that much. How considerate. She handed me a business card. My attorney's information. He'll be in touch about the custody arrangement and property division. I think you'll find the terms reasonable. I looked at the card. Hamilton and Associates. Downtown firm. Expensive. Let me guess. Derek's covering the legal fees? Derek's been supportive, yes. He believes I deserve better than what I've had. The last truck pulled away at 11:52 a.m., 65 minutes to dismantle 16 years of marriage. I stood in my empty living room, listening to the echo of my footsteps while Ayla gathered the last of her personal items. "I'll send someone for the rest next week," she said from the doorway. "Try not to take this personally, Jared. We just want different things." "Right. You want Derek, and I wanted a faithful wife. Incompatible goals. Don't be bitter. It's not attractive." She left without looking back. I spent the next hour walking through my hollow house, taking inventory of what remained. My clothes, my tools, my home office equipment, the basics of survival, nothing more. Everything that made the house a home had followed Ayla to Derek's apartment. At 1:30, I drove to the Pinnacle. Derek's building sat on the corner of 5th and Main, all glass and steel and architectural pretension. The kind of place that charged extra for city views and marble countertops. I found his Tesla in the underground garage, and parked in a spot marked Reserved D Lane. I took the elevator to the 15th floor. The door to 15C stood slightly open. I could hear voices inside, laughter. The girls talking about their new rooms, Ayla explaining where to put her jewelry box. I knocked once and walked in. Derek stood in the kitchen, wearing gym shorts and a tank top that showed off the muscles he'd built since leaving my company. He looked good, confident, like a man who'd just acquired everything he wanted. "Jared, didn't expect to see you so soon." "I bet you didn't." Emma and Sophie sat on Derek's leather couch, playing with his expensive gaming system. They looked up when I entered, and I saw guilt in their faces. Not defiance. Guilt, which meant they understood more than Ayla claimed. "Dad," Emma said carefully, "Mom explained about the separation." "Did she explain about Derek?" Sophie shifted uncomfortably. "She said you and Derek had business problems. That's why you can't all live together anymore." Business problems. Not adultery. Not betrayal. Just a professional disagreement that happened to require my wife moving into my former friend's apartment. "That's one way to put it," I said. Derek stepped closer. "Look, man, I know this is awkward, but Ayla's happy here. The girls are adjusting. Maybe we can all be adults about this." "Adults? Right?" I looked around his apartment, expensive furniture, city views, a wet bar stocked with premium liquor. "Nice place, Derek. Business must be good." "Can't complain. Turns out there was room in the market for another electrical contractor. Especially one with inside information about existing contracts." His smile tightened. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. You worked for me for 3 years. You had access to client lists, pricing strategies, project timelines. Now you're competing directly with my business while sleeping with my wife. Those are facts." "Dad, please," Emma said. "Don't make this worse." But I was just getting started. I walked to Derek's kitchen counter, where he'd left his keys next to his wallet. Tesla keys. The same Tesla that had provided expensive late-night rides for my wife. "How long has this been going on, Derek?" "Jared, maybe you should—" "How long?" Ayla appeared from the bedroom, having changed into clothes I didn't recognize. Expensive clothes. Derek's taste, not hers. "Jared, you're upsetting the girls." "I'm upsetting them?" "I'm not the one who moved them into my former employee's apartment without discussing it with their father. We discussed this. The papers explain everything. The papers you prepared with Derek's input. The papers that claim I'm emotionally unstable and unfit for custody. Those papers?" Derek stepped between us. "I think you should leave. This is my family, Derek. This is my apartment, and you're trespassing." I looked at my daughters, sitting on Derek's couch in Derek's apartment, wearing expressions I'd never seen before. Fear, confusion, embarrassment, and I realized Derek was right. This wasn't my family anymore. This was his. I walked to the kitchen counter and picked up Derek's Tesla keys. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Leaving, like you suggested." I headed for the door, then stopped. "By the way, Derek, you might want to check your car before you drive anywhere. Electrical systems can be tricky, especially when they're not properly maintained." I left his apartment and took the elevator to the garage. Derek's Tesla sat exactly where I'd found it, pristine and gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I keyed both sides, front to back, spelling out "Home Wrecker" in foot-high letters. Then I found a loose piece of rebar from a nearby construction site and introduced it to his rear windshield. The glass spider-webbed but didn't shatter. Safety glass. Designed to stay intact under pressure, unlike some marriages. I left Derek's keys on his hood and drove home to my empty house, already planning my next move. If Derek wanted to play electrical contractor with my family, I'd show him what happened when someone tried to steal power from the main line. Time to teach him about short circuits. The Riverside Motel wasn't exactly 4-star accommodations, but it had 3 things going for it. Cheap weekly rates, no questions asked, and cockroaches that paid better rent than I was getting from my empty house. At least the bugs are reliable tenants, I muttered, watching one scurry across the bathroom mirror while I shaved with a disposable razor. 3 days had passed since the moving trucks. 3 days of sleeping on a mattress that felt like it was stuffed with broken dreams and eating takeout from containers that judge my life choices. My daughters hadn't returned my calls. Ayla's attorney had sent 2 certified letters demanding I sign the custody agreement, and Derek had filed a police report about his car. No charges, though. Hard to prove vandalism when half the downtown parking garage lacked working security cameras. Funny how electrical systems failed at convenient times. I was reviewing the Henderson project files when my phone rang. Joanne, my office manager for the past 6 years. "Jared, we need to talk. Can you come in?" "What's wrong?" "Just come in, please." Sollace Electrical occupied a converted warehouse on the industrial side of town. Nothing fancy, but functional. Office space upstairs, workshop and storage below, parking for the company trucks. I'd bought the building 8 years ago when business started taking off. Now it felt like a mausoleum. Joanne met me at the front door, her usually cheerful demeanor replaced by something that looked like pity. "The board called an emergency meeting this morning," she said without preamble. "What board? We don't have a board." "We do now. Ayla filed papers yesterday claiming 50% ownership of the business. Her attorney says since you started the company during marriage, she's entitled to equal control." I stared at her. "That's not how this works. The business is incorporated. I'm the sole shareholder." Her lawyer disagrees. They're claiming community property rights, and they've got documentation showing Ayla contributed to business decisions over the years. "What documentation?" Joanne handed me a folder. Inside were copies of emails, meeting notes, and financial records dating back 5 years. All legitimate. All showing Ayla's involvement in major business decisions. All completely normal for a married couple running a family business. "There's more," Joanne said. "Derek filed a complaint with the state licensing board. Claims you've been using insider information to undercut his bids." "That's ridiculous. He's the one with insider information. He worked here for 3 years." "I know that. You know that. But Derek's got documentation too. Bid sheets, client communications, project timelines. He's claiming you're engaging in anti-competitive practices." I flipped through Derek's complaint, recognizing my own business strategies turned into evidence of wrongdoing. Every legitimate tactic I'd used to win contracts was now portrayed as unethical behavior. They're coordinating this," I said. "Ayla and Derek. The divorce, the business claims, the licensing complaint. It's all connected. Gets worse. The emergency board meeting? They voted to suspend you pending investigation of the licensing complaint." "Suspend me? From my own company?" "Ayla is the majority voice now. She claims you're emotionally compromised and making poor decisions. Derek provided testimony about your erratic behavior regarding his car." I sat down hard in my desk chair, trying to process what was happening. In 3 days, I'd lost my family, my home, and now my business. Everything I'd built over 15 years was being systematically dismantled by people I'd trusted. "There's something else," Joanne said quietly. "I wasn't supposed to tell you this, but Ayla's been here twice this week, going through files, copying documents, talking to employees." "What kind of documents?" "Client lists, financial records, project histories, everything Derek would need to compete with us effectively." The picture became clearer. This wasn't just a divorce. It was a hostile takeover disguised as a personal crisis. Derek wanted my business, Ayla wanted my assets, and they'd found a way to get both while making me look like the problem. Who else knows about this? Most of the crew. Ayla made a point of explaining that she's protecting the company from your instability. Some of the guys are worried about their jobs. I thought about my employees. Good people. Skilled tradesmen who depended on steady work to support their families. Now they were caught in the middle of Derek and Ayla's scheme. "What about Lucy in HR?" "She's the one who told me about Ayla's visits. Lucy doesn't buy the official story." Lucy Martinez had been with the company for 4 years. Sharp, observant, and completely immune to manipulation. If anyone could help me document what was really happening, it would be her. "Can you set up a meeting, somewhere off-site?" "Already did. Tonight at Murphy's Bar, 7 o'clock. Murphy's Bar occupied a corner building in the old warehouse district, the kind of place where working people went to complain about management and drink beer that didn't cost more than their hourly wage. perfect for a conversation that needed to stay private. I found Lucy in a corner booth, nursing a whiskey and looking like she'd had a long day. "This is messed up, Jared," she said without preamble. "Whatever's happening between you and Ayla, it doesn't justify what she's doing to the business. Tell me what you've seen." She's been copying personnel files, payroll records, insurance information, everything Derek would need to poach our best people. "Any documentation?" Lucy slid a manila envelope across the table. "Security camera footage from the office. Timestamps show Ayla accessing files she has no business reviewing, plus copies of the documents she printed." I opened the envelope and found exactly what I'd hoped for. Clear evidence that Ayla was using her claimed ownership stake to steal business information for Derek's benefit. "There's more," Lucy said. "I've been monitoring the employee chat group, some interesting conversations about Derek's new company. Turns out he's been recruiting our people for weeks." She showed me screenshots from the company messaging app. Derek's name appeared in multiple conversations, always with the same message. Better pay, better benefits, better management. Come work for someone who appreciated skilled labor. "He's been planning this for months," I said. "Gets better. Remember the Morrison warehouse project? The one where Derek somehow underbid us by exactly 3%? I nodded. Derek's bid had been suspiciously accurate, like he'd known our numbers in advance. I checked the file access logs. Ayla reviewed that project folder the day before Derek submitted his bid. The pieces fell into place. Derek hadn't just stolen my wife. He'd used her to steal my business intelligence, my employees, and my reputation. The licensing complaint, the ownership claims, the custody battle, everything was designed to destroy me while they built their empire on the wreckage. "What do you need from me?" Lucy asked. "Everything you can document. File access logs, security footage, employee communications. If Derek and Ayla want to play corporate espionage, let's make sure we have evidence." "And then what?" "Then I show them what happens when you try to steal power from someone who knows how electrical systems really work." I left Murphy's bar with a clear understanding of what I was facing. This wasn't a divorce. It was a coordinated attack on everything I'd built. Derek and Ayla had planned every move, anticipated every response, and positioned themselves to win regardless of what I did. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed I'd play by their rules. Time to show them what happened when the power grid fought back. The Henderson Project completion party was supposed to be my triumph. 3 months of work, $200,000 in revenue, and a client so happy they were already talking about future contracts. Instead, I stood in the Riverside Motel parking lot, watching the celebration through social media posts from my own employees. My former employees, technically. The suspension was still in effect, but I had something better than a party. I had Lucy's documentation, Joanne's loyalty, and a plan that would make Derek's car vandalism look like amateur hour. The first phase started with a simple email to every contact in my business database: clients, suppliers, subcontractors, industry associations, and the state licensing board. The subject line read, "Setting the record straight. Documentation attached." The message was brief and professional. "Recent claims about Sollace Electrical's business practices require clarification. Please find attached documentation showing the actual timeline of events, including evidence of corporate espionage and coordinated attacks on our company's reputation. All materials include metadata and source verification. Thank you for your attention to this matter." The attachments told the complete story: security footage of Ayla accessing confidential files, chat logs showing Derek's recruitment efforts, bid analysis proving insider information was used to undercut legitimate competition, financial records demonstrating the coordinated nature of the business and personal attacks, everything with timestamps, metadata, and hash verification. I sent the email at 8:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, knowing it would hit inboxes during the Wednesday morning routine when people actually read business correspondence. By 10 a.m. Wednesday, my phone was ringing. "Jared, this is Bill Henderson. Got your email. We need to talk." Bill Henderson owned the warehouse project Derek had been celebrating. More importantly, he owned 3 other properties that needed electrical work over the next 2 years. "What can I do for you, Bill?" "Derek Lane contacted us last week about future projects. Claimed he had inside knowledge of our specifications and could beat any competing bid. Made it sound like standard industry practice." "I see. Your documentation suggests otherwise, makes it look like corporate espionage." "The evidence speaks for itself." "Yes, it does. We're terminating our discussions with Derek's company. Wanted you to know." 3 more clients called before lunch. Same story. Derek had approached them with suspiciously detailed knowledge of their needs and my pricing strategies. Knowledge that could only have come from accessing my confidential files. Knowledge that Ayla had provided. The second phase launched at 2 p.m. I posted the same documentation to the local business association's online forum, the electrical contractors professional group, and the neighborhood social network where Derek and Ayla lived. The neighborhood post was my favorite. I titled it, "When Business Gets Personal, a Case Study in Corporate Ethics, and Let the Evidence Speak for Itself. No accusations, no emotional appeals, just facts with timestamps." Within hours, the comments section exploded. This is why I don't trust contractors who badmouth their competition. Derek Lane tried to recruit my husband last month, said his old boss was unstable. Guess we know who's really unstable. Ayla Sollace was in my book club, always bragging about her husband's business success. Funny how she's trying to destroy it now. The third phase required patience. I waited until Thursday evening, when Derek would be at his weekly gym session at Premier Fitness downtown. I knew his schedule because he'd been posting workout photos on social media for months, always at the same time, always at the same location. I arrived at Premier Fitness at 7:30 p.m. and found Derek's Tesla in its usual spot near the front entrance. The scratches from my previous visit had been professionally repaired. The car looked perfect again. I left it alone. Instead, I walked to the gym's front desk and asked to speak with the manager about their electrical systems. Explained that I was a licensed contractor who'd noticed some potential code violations in their parking lot lighting, offered to provide a free safety inspection. The manager was grateful. Liability issues kept him awake at night. I spent 20 minutes documenting actual minor violations in the parking lot electrical systems. Nothing dangerous, just the kind of routine maintenance issues that every commercial property accumulated over time. Then I prepared a professional report recommending upgrades. The report happened to mention that the current parking lot lighting created blind spots where security cameras couldn't effectively monitor vehicle vandalism. Purely a safety observation. I submitted the report to the gym management, the city electrical inspector, and Derek's insurance company. All perfectly legitimate. All completely above board. Derek's insurance rates would probably increase. His gym might ask him to park elsewhere until the lighting was upgraded. Minor inconveniences, but they would accumulate. The fourth phase targeted Ayla directly. I knew she'd been attending book club at the Riverside Community Center every Thursday night, the same book club where she'd been building her social network and spreading her version of our marriage problems. I didn't crash the meeting. Instead, I sent a carefully crafted email to the community center's administration, explaining that my wife had been using their facility to coordinate what appeared to be business espionage activities. Attached the same documentation I'd sent to everyone else. The community center took their reputation seriously. They didn't want to host activities that might expose them to legal liability. Ayla's book club received notice that their meeting space was no longer available pending review of their activities. By Friday afternoon, the coordinated attack was showing results. Derek's business phone had been ringing all day, with clients canceling contracts. The state licensing board had opened an investigation into his recruitment practices. His insurance company had flagged his account for review. Ayla's social circle was fragmenting as people chose sides based on the evidence I'd provided. Kendra and Cassie were still loyal, but other friends were asking uncomfortable questions about corporate espionage and marriage ethics. The suspension from my own company remained in effect, but the narrative was changing. Instead of protecting the business from my instability, Ayla looked like she was trying to steal it for Derek's benefit. My phone rang at 4:30 p.m. Derek's number. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "About what?" "About ending this before it gets out of hand." "It's already out of hand, Derek. You made sure of that when you decided to steal my business along with my wife." "I didn't steal anything. Ayla made her own choice." "Right. And the corporate espionage, the insider information, the coordinated attacks on my reputation, those were her choices too?" Silence on the line. "Meet me at Murphy's bar," Derek said finally. 1 hour. We settle this face to face. "Looking forward to it." I hung up and checked my watch. 1 hour to prepare for the next phase. The phase where Derek learned what happened when someone tried to short-circuit a master electrician's power supply. Time to show him how real revenge worked. Murphy's bar was crowded for a Friday night, filled with the usual mix of construction workers, office employees, and people who had nowhere better to be. Perfect cover for a conversation that might get heated. I found Derek at the same corner booth where Lucy and I had met earlier in the week. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 5 days. His usual confident demeanor had been replaced by something that resembled actual worry. "You're destroying both our businesses," he said before I'd even sat down. "I'm defending my business. There's a difference." "The licensing board investigation affects all electrical contractors in the city. You're making the whole industry look bad." I signaled the bartender for a beer and studied Derek's face. The golden tan was still there, along with the expensive haircut and the gym-built physique, but his eyes showed strain. "How's Ayla handling the social media attention?" I asked. "She's upset. The neighborhood forum posts have been brutal." "Truth tends to be brutal. That's why most people avoid it." Derek leaned forward. "Look, maybe we can work something out? A settlement that benefits everyone." "I'm listening." "You drop the licensing complaint and stop posting documentation online. In exchange, Ayla reduces her ownership claim and we establish clear boundaries between our businesses." "What about my daughters?" "Custody arrangement stays as filed, but we can be flexible about visitation." I took a long drink of beer and considered his offer. It was reasonable, from his perspective. He'd keep most of what he'd stolen while giving me just enough to stop fighting back. "Counteroffer," I said. "You and Ayla return everything you've taken. Business information, client lists, employee contacts, proprietary data, full disclosure of what you've copied and where it's been used." "That's not realistic." "Then we have a problem." Derek's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his expression darkened. "What now?" I asked. "Kendra. She's at your house. Says there are police cars in your driveway." My house, where I'd been staying since moving out of the motel 3 days earlier, where I'd been organizing my documentation and planning my next moves. "What kind of police cars?" "She doesn't know, but Ayla's panicking. Thinks you've done something crazy." I finished my beer and stood up. Only one way to find out. "Jared, wait. If you've done something illegal..." "I haven't done anything illegal, Derek, but I'm about to do something that will end this permanently." I left him sitting in the booth and drove home through Friday night traffic, my mind racing through possibilities. Police at my house could mean anything. Noise complaints from neighbors, follow-up questions about Derek's car, a welfare check requested by concerned family members, or something else entirely. I found 2 patrol cars parked in my driveway, along with Ayla's SUV and Kendra's sedan. Through my front window, I could see uniformed officers talking to my wife in my living room. I parked on the street and walked to my own front door. "Sir, are you the homeowner?" The first officer was young, probably new to the force, with the eager politeness of someone still learning the job. "Yes, Jared Sollace. What's the problem?" "We received a call about a possible break-in. Your wife said someone had been in the house without permission." I looked past him to where Ayla stood next to my fireplace, Kendra beside her like a supportive witness. Both women wore expressions of concerned innocence. "My wife doesn't live here anymore," I said. "She moved out a week ago. I've been staying here since then." The second officer, older and more experienced, stepped forward. "Sir, we're going to need to see some identification and proof of residence." I provided both. Driver's license showing my address, utility bills in my name, mortgage documents proving ownership. The young officer reviewed everything while his partner asked follow-up questions. "Ma'am, you said someone had broken into the house?" Ayla nodded earnestly. "I came by to pick up some personal items I'd forgotten. The front door was unlocked, and I could hear someone moving around upstairs. I was afraid to go in alone." "The someone moving around was me," I said. "In my own house." "But Jared, you said you were staying at the motel. I didn't expect you to be here." The older officer looked between us with the weary expression of someone who'd handled too many domestic disputes. "Sir, have you been staying here recently?" "Every night this week. I moved back in on Tuesday." "Ma'am, were you aware your husband had returned to the residence?" Ayla's confident expression wavered slightly. "No, he didn't tell me." "Why would I need to tell you? It's my house." Kendra stepped forward. "Officer, there's been ongoing conflict between them. Ayla's concerned about her safety." "Has there been any violence or threats of violence?" the young officer asked. "No," I said firmly. "No violence, no threats, no contact at all until tonight." "But there was the incident with Derek's car," Ayla said. "Jared vandalized his vehicle. Derek filed a police report." Both officers looked at me with renewed interest. "Sir, are you aware of any property damage complaints?" "I'm aware Derek made a complaint. I'm not aware of any evidence linking me to property damage." The older officer consulted his notepad. "Says here the complaint was filed, but no charges were pursued due to insufficient evidence." "Exactly." We stood in my driveway for another 10 minutes while the officers sorted through the situation. No crime had been committed, no evidence of breaking and entering existed, no signs of violence or threats were present. Eventually, they concluded what I'd known from the beginning. This was a civil matter disguised as a criminal complaint. "Ma'am, If you need to retrieve personal property, we recommend coordinating with your husband in advance, the older officer said. Sir, if you are concerned about unauthorized entry, consider changing the locks. Both patrol cars pulled away, leaving me alone with Ayla and Kendra in my driveway. That was unnecessary, I said. I was protecting myself, Ayla replied. You've been acting erratically. I've been defending myself. There's a difference. Kendra moved closer to Ayla in a show of support. Everyone's talking about your online posts, Jared. It's embarrassing. Everyone's talking about the evidence of corporate espionage and adultery. That's different from embarrassment. You're trying to destroy Derek's business out of spite. I'm exposing Derek's business practices. If that destroys his business, the problem isn't my documentation. Ayla pulled out her phone. I'm calling Derek. He needs to know the police were involved. Tell Derek I said hello, and tell him the licensing board investigation is just getting started. I walked toward my front door, then stopped and turned back. By the way, Ayla, you might want to check your social media accounts. The neighborhood forum has been very active tonight. Lots of interesting discussions about marriage ethics and business fraud. Her face went pale. What did you do? I shared the truth, with documentation. Amazing how much people care about facts when they're properly presented. I went inside and locked the door behind me, leaving Ayla and Kendra to deal with the social media storm I'd been building all week. Phase 5 was about to begin, and this time Derek and Ayla would learn what happened when someone tried to steal power from a master electrician who'd had enough of playing defense. Time to show them what a real power surge looked like. The annual Riverside Business Association Gala was supposed to be Derek's coming out party. 300 local business owners, city council members, and media representatives gathering to celebrate entrepreneurial success in our community. Derek had bought a premium table, sent invitations to his new clients, planned to announce major expansion plans for his electrical contracting business. Instead, he was about to get a master class in how power grids really worked. I arrived at the Riverside Convention Center at 7:30 p.m., 30 minutes after the cocktail hour had started, long enough for people to have their first drinks and settle into social conversations. Perfect timing for what I had planned. The main ballroom buzzed with the familiar energy of business networking events. Men in expensive suits discussing contracts and market opportunities. Women in cocktail dresses navigating the complex social dynamics of professional relationships. Everyone working the room with practiced efficiency. I found Derek near the bar, holding court with a group that included Bill Henderson, 2 city council members, and a reporter from the local business journal. He wore a perfectly tailored navy suit and his most confident smile. The smile faltered when he saw me approaching. Jared, he said with forced casualness, didn't expect to see you here. Wouldn't miss it. This is my community too. Bill Henderson extended his hand. Good to see you, Jared. Got your updated project proposal yesterday. Impressive work. Thank you, Bill. I believe in thorough documentation. The reporter, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Wells, stepped forward. Mr. Sollace, I've been following the licensing board investigation. Any comment on the allegations against your former employee? Derek's confident expression cracked slightly. Patricia, I think there's been some misunderstanding about... No misunderstanding, I said. The documentation is quite clear. Corporate espionage, theft of proprietary information, coordinated attacks on competitor businesses, all with timestamps and source verification. Those are serious allegations, one of the city council members said. They're backed by serious evidence. Derek tried to regain control of the conversation. Jared's been under a lot of stress lately, personal issues affecting his judgment. Personal issues like discovering my wife was stealing business information for your benefit? The group went quiet. Patricia Wells pulled out her phone and started recording. That's a very specific claim, Mr. Sollace, she said. Can you substantiate it? I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. Security camera footage, file access logs, and communication records. Everything's documented. Derek stepped closer, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. Don't do this here, Jared. Think about what you're risking. I'm not risking anything, Derek. I'm ending this. I handed the envelope to Patricia Wells. Feel free to verify everything. Hash codes and metadata are included. Derek's face went red. You son of a... Careful, Derek. We're in public. Wouldn't want people to see your real personality. The conversation was drawing attention from other groups. People were moving closer, sensing drama in the air. I could see Ayla across the room, wearing a stunning black dress and talking animatedly with Kendra and Cassie. Time for the main event. I walked to the small stage where the evening's presentations would take place and tapped the microphone. The feedback squeal got everyone's attention. Good evening, everyone. Sorry to interrupt the networking, but I have an announcement that affects several businesses represented here tonight. Derek pushed through the crowd toward the stage, but security personnel stepped into his path. The convention center staff didn't know what was happening, but they recognized the signs of a situation that needed to be controlled. For those who don't know me, I'm Jared Sollace, owner of Sollace Electrical. Over the past month, my business has been the target of a coordinated attack involving corporate espionage, theft of proprietary information, and systematic attempts to damage our reputation. The room was completely quiet now. 300 people focused on the stage, phones out, recording everything. The attacks were orchestrated by Derek Lane, my former employee, with the assistance of my soon-to-be ex-wife, Ayla Sollace. They used inside access to steal client lists, pricing strategies, and project specifications. They recruited our employees using confidential information. They filed false complaints with regulatory agencies to damage our business relationships. Derek broke free from security and reached the stage. This is slander, Jared. You can't prove any of... I can prove all of it. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the convention center's audio-visual system. The main screens around the ballroom lit up with security camera footage showing Ayla accessing confidential files in my office. Timestamp shows this was recorded 3 days before Derek submitted his bid for the Morrison warehouse project, a bid that undercut mine by exactly 3%. The footage switched to chat logs showing Derek recruiting my employees with inside knowledge of their salaries and benefits. These conversations took place while Derek was publicly claiming he'd built his business through superior service and competitive pricing. Derek lunged toward the AV controls, but security grabbed him. "Turn it off. This is private information." "It was private," I said, "until you stole it." The screens now showed email communications between Ayla and Derek, planning the timeline of our divorce to coincide with maximum damage to my business. They coordinated personal and professional attacks to destroy my reputation while building Derek's company on stolen information. I could see Ayla pushing through the crowd, her face white with shock and anger. Kendra and Cassie followed, looking like they wanted to disappear. The evidence has been provided to the state licensing board, the district attorney's office, and local media. All materials include metadata verification and chain of custody documentation. Patricia Wells was recording everything, her expression showing the focused intensity of a reporter who'd stumbled onto a major story. In conclusion, I said, looking directly at Derek, this is what happens when someone tries to steal power from a master electrician. The system fights back. Derek broke free from security one more time and charged the stage. You destroyed everything. My business, my reputation, Your business was built on theft. Your reputation was based on lies. I just provided the truth with proper documentation. He swung at me, a wild haymaker that missed completely. Security tackled him before he could try again, and the crowd erupted in chaos. Ayla reached the stage as Derek was being restrained. "Jared, stop this. Think about our daughters." "I am thinking about them. They deserve to know the truth about their mother. You're destroying their family. You destroyed their family when you moved in with Derek. I'm just making sure everyone understands why." The convention center security had called the police. I could hear sirens approaching through the parking lot. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said into the microphone, "thank you for your attention. The documentation is available for review, and I'm confident the appropriate authorities will take action based on the evidence." I disconnected my phone from the AV system and walked off the stage, leaving Derek being restrained by security and Ayla standing alone in her expensive black dress. The crowd parted as I walked toward the exit. Some people looked shocked, others impressed, a few clearly entertained by the spectacle. Patricia Wells intercepted me near the door. "Mr. Sollace, will you be pressing charges?" "The evidence speaks for itself. The authorities can decide what charges are appropriate." "Any regrets about the public confrontation?" I looked back at the chaos I'd created. Derek being led away by security. Ayla surrounded by concerned friends who were probably reconsidering their loyalties. 300 business leaders who now knew exactly what had happened and who was responsible. "No regrets," I said. "Sometimes the truth needs a big stage." I walked out into the parking lot as police cars arrived, their red and blue lights painting the convention center in colors that reminded me of electrical warning signs. Derek and Ayla had tried to short-circuit my life. Instead, they'd learned what happened when someone crossed the wrong wires. The power grid had fought back and won. I drove home through the city lights, feeling something I hadn't experienced in months. Complete satisfaction. Not happiness, exactly. Not peace. But the deep contentment that came from a job finished properly. Derek's business would never recover from tonight's exposure. Ayla's social standing was destroyed. Their reputations were ruined beyond repair. and I was still standing, still in control of my own power supply. Time to see what kind of current I could generate next.